a breaching method employed you to sense for it, black pupils. See, we have grouped things we all believe and feel and want, in other words. People are jumping into our conversations dishonestly for a breaching method. For example, when we tried, since we were kids, to communicate about how we discern, the human is capable of discerning. A human fact achieving nature breaching method is one of the things that is true always that caused slavery. And right where and how there are collusion slash s blaming other things, others ourselves for that. For example, such a serious thing. Otherwise, censoring people for the breaching method that employed before America's founders were born. Slavery was entrenched sickly, distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies, and sickly non distinctly, but no one paid attention to that, even though it's recorded. See, we had our founders had to classify things. They had to entertain speech apart from, that was simultaneous, in other words, entertain things that they didn't want to entertain, which is collusions of selves against selves. Otherwise, that body was sensed by the breaching method. This is the foundation of suits and ties, counters, and exceptions, with arguments with that, too, contain clearer than day, used remotely by the breaching method. These are hyperarchaeological evidences right with the suburbs themselves, designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and more roles. With that breaching method perfect against A through Z before modern countries were even born. That's what had been sustained on Native Americans. With the nature debate regarding what is practical to theorize or convict, let alone to convict, regarding the records we know, with these conversations, these natures of debate have stayed natures incapable of appreciating the roles of criminal insidiousness nature with this. And that as criminal foreign influences slash hyper criminal foreign influences. That is also demonstrated where and how things like that, crazy laws against everyone. There were slavery laws against every single person. If anyone was found out to have been speaking about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations, they would do bad things to those people and everyone around them. Worse, there's a human fact achieving nature breaching method that has everyone sensing for itself because it employed use slash uses of difference slash differences, rackets, roles, communicating tactical ulterior from what nature communicates and how it communicates with this, of pretending other. When black pupils has there been integrity? In other words, there's that natural integrity that is forth. That, in other words, that which wants to be communicated to by the one that should, by the hyper invisible but still discernible identity of hyper simultaneous nature that is showing our species body of individual bodies. There are other species bodies too. Also, with group differences in the individual, but we have been even the ground below our feet at countries A through Z, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly. It has been tactically denatured. Countries that can traverse the earth and still have suburbs that were designed before cars, suburbs, let alone cities. It's a clearer than day breaching method employed. Part of that torture, extortion, slavery method against James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to use that plan. And James Madison was our fourth president, but this was before that. See, but we have that replaced. So we have by the expert, and we have self-by rules with that, with the experts on each of the sciences. Because from off all locations slash S, including their homes. In other words, it had roles with the relativity, with the databases. But those databases also were rules of relative. In other words, they had what was manifest when you had those crazy fact cheating nature, torture, extortion, slavery method slash S laws is having been sustained against every single person, sickly distinctly too, to use to sense for the breaching method who's going to address how sickly non distinctly. They're going to be sensed before then by their own people because everyone was all differences. All the breaching method needs people with a parent until real. It made them all real, but like motivations, narratives, natures, to hide behind because it stays with all location slash S, a conscious method, conscious use slash S of other consciously maintained self-cultivated self-value on our side, but by the breaching method fluent through our countries, communicating other than James Madison communicated, and our founders behind him. And nature itself shows us that we have three natures of founders, and they are grouped three ways. The Native Americans are the only ones that are all three ways our founders. One way, but we're supposed to appreciate them as James Madison. We're supposed to appreciate them as the Constitution unabridged. And we're supposed to appreciate them as how and why we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. Let alone, in other words, the only exceptions, in other words, the only reason they got away, you go let them play the excuses, like with reservations. There's no excuse why it's separated from water. Its identity of relationship to itself that is capable of evolution, causing evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, or showing with negative value nature progressions, acts, natures, which it also shows that can be turned into criminal insidiousness natures of positives or hyper criminal insidious, hyper positives. There's a difference between criminal insidiousness nature of positive. I'm not even a lawyer. Since founding, little kids had means to discern how lawyers are forcing a quality of fact cheaping nature that is a kid qualities because there are roles with the predicate acts with facts method slash S that me and others could discern that those laws were about. A human fact cheaping nature breaching method is one of the things that is true always. What slavery was about, what caused it was about. But there were more names involved, just like there are more now than just A through Z, and more than just the terrorists and criminal enterprises. The terrorists are effectively used on 9/11 as timed collusion slash S with our effective uses. Use slash S of all kinds of identities of the law and all sides of criminal and civil cases, the interbranch names, the difference between that, their family members, people's neighbors, because this breaching method uses perfected use slash S of all location slash S everywhere the species body was. Why do you think when you learn about Boolean logic, everyone leaves out how all those countries were forced, strict, hurt, and persuaded to ignore how the breaching method stayed with all differences, because nature itself is showing us the body of its difference where we are shown. We have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. And we didn't invent this. And they're not alone. Because other species bodies have two eyes. They have quality aspects in nature distinct, but also non-distinct. And simultaneously, but also again, per science, further hyper simultaneously discernible. So the nature debate contains quality aspects in nature itself as criminal insidiousness nature. Fact treatments, truth treatments truths can be used for lies, to screen lies. and increasingly the motivations of the breaching methods roles with questions and answers natural regarding, in other words, all natures of things. This breaching method recorded consciously, sickly distinctly too, is multi-front against each age of correlation nature. And the difference between our own homeland, interbranch or intelligence, which is also shared with a whole bunch of nations, they're supposed to hide that for a whole bunch of reasons because they don't have integrity at A through Z and have to blame each other. Because there is also another hyperforeign name that is keeping them time needing to use corners of streets, needing to use differences, where they are used to keep things stupid while pretending other. Like people pretending that they could speak for integrity and seriousness regarding even peaceful nuclear technology, but they can't afford to have discerned. In other words, anyone who tries to debate this, for example, about these things, they have to rely upon other being and having been communicated for America's founders and self-value rules with uses of what they said, leaving out what was actually recorded and what they declassified about that, and leaving out what nature itself declassified about and declassifies about it. And since we are kids, these suburbs were designed before they were cars. We have a mic that by the species body that is attached to each person, a potential that because there's that we know. See, but people will jump into our conversations and force groupthink to stay. Subject treatments, criminally foreign influences, always from off all location /S. Forgiveness is because the means to discern this is right where and how there are collusions /S with differences like criminals or the people that are putting them away. And increasingly the prisons have timed collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the courts names at themselves at the same time how they are juxtaposed actually with a whole bunch of different countries, intelligence families, and campuses. I never had a class with Joe DeMoro. They tried to make a fake exception to play games with a summer school class. And they have roles with home break-ins, with the intelligence community, with Heather Hansen was also put in that summer school class. And she had other boyfriends at the same time who have roles with that. And the people, like, I've never seen her around. In other words, I never had a class with her either. And she has roles increasingly with people at Trinity College associated with a Joshua Stryker, who also has identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, and planting evidences and fishing through what was said or is said on Facebook to cover up what was confirmed on Facebook and demonstrated with them. Also with their ad placements. And they're increasingly Weathersfield police and people and police families intercities in foreign countries are confessing, demonstrating, recording, confirmed people tied to Mazzucato Bakery and Modern Pastry, have a Mayano family, have others at Hartford Hospital involved with fake transcripts with me and fake identity theft, fraud, slanders, intercities connected every year of my life. Now, I've been asking you guys to get them on paper through Judge Napolitano's YouTube channel. They're in the background lying about their motivations with that too. They changed digital evidences with whiting forensics. See, there's a certain type of victim /hyper victim doesn't know how to counter, but as and through collusion /S. All kinds of rackets with the doctors that have been prescribing the pills and giving away free samples have been roles criminally foreign influence uses of locations. Fabricating roles with the people, and then they have to hide that with their whole family members. The intelligence community has all kinds of roles with psychiatry and with the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and corrections offices. Since I was a kid, they have been putting people planting evidence on my street. I found out it's one where intelligence families have roles with wire crime acts and methods, fake transcripts over the phone too. Weathersfield police made confessions over the phone regarding the name Cololo. A Bob Chase of Whiting Forensics and State Police families interstates were involved. But a Bob Chase said there's a Phil Cololo is one of the ones involved with them, with federal evidences, crimes, and predicate acts involved with a principal child offender. It's an upskirt nature, but he was involved with way worse with a Bob Chase. And other people with Whiting Forensics involved with the Joshua Julian, and people associated with a Violet families and a Justa Kovinskis. People with the name Casper, too. These are also people with a Yagman, and Anthony Yagman is involved with a bunch of doctors that have been forging doctors' names, attaching little kids to fake conversations and fake ties to others at camp inside the camp databases, and then trying to take pictures of people walking next to each other, walking next to people, and and positively try to make it look like they're positive tie and negative, even creepy things like that. As one's involved with the World Trade Center, increasingly all sides of the Weathersfield Community Center, and the community center has people involved with intelligence, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences, crimes, and World Trade Center predicate acts also with the news and names next to them. They're also being influenced to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They're being influenced to pretend they don't realize that and to hide the exceptions. This is also where and how people self-value roles with wars, even their own family members could get shipped away and killed. In other words, there's a naive nature, in fact, cheap nature quality aspects in the use/s roles that can't defend itself and afford to be, let alone to protract short words that are capable of defending ourselves. So Judge Napolitano, I watch his YouTube live streams, but all these experts, when they speak on mental health and the integrity of mental experts, they have already been collusions. In other words, all kinds of foreign and domestic corruption with psychiatry, with differences rackets. That's why they can't afford to discern. Which with the beginning of the Old Testament says, only defend right here. How could no one know it? If everyone's so passionate about caring about the religion. And the same thing with the Old Testament. I mean, the same thing with the Quran. The Quran has a part right up front that says, all that matters is right here. In fact, if you sense for any reason not to pray in the mosque, don't pray in the mosque. It doesn't say you have to pray. All that you have to do is be honest about, are you going to agree to call the identity of the hyper simultaneous per science reason, Allah or not? There is a scientific value. We're being led by the hyper invisible, but still discernible. But like this, we're a pond. All of a sudden, one person goes like that, and then no one could discern it, except for the breaching method, which has it all set up, a trap, a semi-ancient trap. Since before modern religious messengers, thank God, multi-front counter /s to this, but also unified. But that's also made capable by nature itself, which holds us unified species body of individual bodies. All group differences are come with demonstrations of how the identity of the hyper simultaneous, to the extent we could discern. It comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. And the relativity /hyper relativity of that too, and has a special difference. And as the parts of it, in other words, the cell is one identity, but the cell nucleus, the cell body, and the cell wall /s and its reception of gases in its elements, water in its element. It is more than one identity or relationship to itself at the same time. But it's just because we are inside, is only increasingly greater than us and more finite than us. But this is where we are an only increasing identity of volume, where value equals nature / nature is value, and nature's value / value is nature. Opposite sequence nature simultaneously, the same way there is, for the same reasons, distinctly but not distinctly, why there is an identity greater than all right to left. Right to left stays distinct from left to right, but it's the same identity, a value progression. The same way with the hyper invisible but still discernible. It is this identity, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that, as why how we need to appreciate more than one word for a verb, and why and how there are the grouped differences of two of those words as phrases, a present participle and a past participle, which are grouped. Well, not, but anyway. In other words, the value of the difference of the species body being yourself, or yourself being an individual, too, simultaneously, both those values are only increasing, but they are relative to a special difference, and as a special difference in ways that you cannot afford to appreciate it with and as nature's that country's A through Z that can pretend. So one of the things we need forgiveness for is to force that quality of fact human nature where we deal with the timeless principle properly. Like how true always. One of the things true always that nature shows us that slavery was a human fact human nature breaching method, and rolls with it. Otherwise, that body was sensed, even though it was against that own body. It was against everyone, sickly distinctly. That how sickly distinctly too. That is played remotely by the breaching method consciously. The nature of debate contains quality aspects in nature. You're going to observe, in other words, all these through decades, through lifetimes, with the weapons and wars. You guys leave out. How could you bring up? Start bringing in all kinds of names. In other words, how could you bring that stuff up with leaving out the black people's whites of eyes? In other words, increasingly you have to self-value with your arguments. How the suburbs were designed before cars were even born, before founders were born, with slavery entrenched north and south, and rolls with it exactly where the breaching method needed, which is live progressions from all those spots with all parts of rolls with it, right to other spots through other things, because it needs to hide behind that. And the motivation, in other words, leaving its name out, like the breaching method as a scientific value. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree on what to call it. And I'm not a lawyer, but their nature itself shows us to call it a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise, and how we can get countries A through Z to enable easements on logistical impositions on the countries with nuclear weapons relative to this. Because in other words, the difference between them having been played at their campuses, A through Z, our countries A through Z, or at their homes, or at parks or next to them. There's a identity theft / fraud / slander method that is three ways manifest per the way. The identity of the hyper simultaneous is 1/3/5 identities of possession over the finite or the order of the finite, and where it is valued, where there is function by how it is hyper invisible but still discernible. black pupils. It is again, it is showing us about different nature's identity itself. Is showing us, is communicating to us about difference because we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time, with the exceptions part, the halos part, and the other species bodies. They also have two eyes. There's a system. There is a hyper additional scientific name and value to name here to appreciate. We don't have to agree about the name, but we have to name it something. There are proofs that ancient pantheism had already had it named Allah, but it's also hyper invisible. But still, you have to check. There's a method to check. Is this really the body with the body of the hyper simultaneous, its identity relation to itself, the value of it? But there's a means to check too, because these 1/3/5 identities of possession as and but while it's coming to, from, as, with, and for each value, while it is the as part is coming to, from, and with and for it. It is 5 ways bound. As value is that which is appreciating. That's where it is showing us the appreciation of the water and its elements, and the gases and its elements, with the cell body, cell nuclear, cell wall. There's the 5 sequence / simultaneous natures of relativity to its identity, of value / value progression. It is showing us that in other words, in summary, that's what we're going to observe, what we are being shown, to the extent with every subject that we have. We have ability to use what is true always, not denying the slice sequence, not denying the slice identity of relativity. In other words, when you guys speak about truth or lying to the kids in New York City when they come packed, or New Jersey when they come packed into courts, and no, I might have heard wrong. I believe I heard in one of the live streams of Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom YouTube channel that the first day he went into a court, which must have been a superior court then, it was like 250 arraignments he had to do. And the right the right to be proven innocent, to be assumed innocent until proven guilty, that was his all kinds of ways denied, because all kinds of naive reactions to roles with that as use, as roles also with use /s of the part where roles are self-valued, blaming other things, others, ourselves, for things nature itself and things our founders communicated for us to blame on the breaching method. So this is the difference between our own or overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and or terrorists. The breaching method never stopped using that to have people make way worse than groupthink. In other words, so increasingly people tied to mayors too are involved with use of location /s by the breaching method, distinctly from the other politicians too. All natures of difference. Forgiveness is so we could keep the breaching method blamed and draw the guilt, and because we have the means to discern it. Other things, others, ourselves are being and haven't been blamed formally at our campuses. The things our founders in nature itself communicated for us to blame in the breaching method. At the same time, those same names had time, fake, fact-cheating nature collusions with areas, criminal enterprises, and terrorists per themselves. Oh, but in other words, they want to pretend things are debatable that are not. That's why I have to hide and plot. That's why I rap a lot. So Connecticut Interbranch, they've been switching names with a whole bunch of people from other areas who have roles of predicate acts on my street in Weathersfield and their family members. Has something to do with their roles doing this next to the campus's intercities too. And with their black theme, KKK theme, sexual theme, but at the same time, collusion slash as to wire crime, mail crime methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and people speaking through others and non-verbally confirming. As rules with poisons too, and bug spray in the fire department with smoke, with all kinds of crimes with unrolls with untimely deaths, drugs and medicines crimes with kids, attaching little kids to their family members to fake conversations with themselves, forging doctors' names, foreign and domestic. The World Trade Center attack was effectively used to make the people of Saudi Arabia and the people of America use our names remotely as collusions with the breaching method. There was a hyper foreign name involved at the World Trade Center next to it, and in the court next to it. All sides of the case and people with the court too, and their campuses since they were kids. Used remotely, criminally foreign info, tactically delusions wrought per a method slash S. Black pupils. Yeah. All we need is to get, in other words, I don't know all their names too. It's people on off where the fire department, Weathersfield Police Station is now, and houses and businesses near there, associated with people with their Facebook page, has rules with the FBI and courts, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, much worse within the principal upskirt nature at the shopping center with the kids was involved with, on and off the campus too, and next to it. These are also people with WTNH all along Route 175 from the founding locations, and names next to them increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts, federal evidences crimes. And what is manifest are things people do, and the opposite is done too. Like there are people with like the people that they have the foreign and domestic, and the people that caught the principal child abuser, like walking up pretending to know them first. That is a part, and people pretending to know each other is part of the people involved with uses of the identity theft, fraud, slanders, method slash S recorded, black pupils. It is time. See, but in other words, to wait until we have the acting roles, because in other words, how many different types of white, and we're more and more we're going to see clearer than day. There's a predicate acts with facts method slash S that everyone wants countered, and it's right there, and we can make so many hyper positives out of negatives instantly, means out of nowhere, but people aren't realizing it because everyone's, we have, everyone's, trying to defend what they said. They're trying to pretend it's a suit and tie integrity. When you examine it, we're going to examine too. On off the state Connecticut judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, they are involved with the World Trade Center attack, and the difference between that and people driving by, and the different, but there's also a hyper foreign. Forgiveness is for this too, but then everyone jumps in it to make themselves hurt, or or help themselves, just to keep the breaching method out, just to keep the quality of fact sheet nature. But you guys aren't following mandated law. So Weathersfield Police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A whole bunch of people I never saw on my street in my life. Joshua Schumack, him and his mother and his neighbor, people that associate with him through time. Involved also with the Facebook page of Weathersfield Police with child defenders, leaders of kids, sexual, medical, interreligious spots, identity theft, fraud, slanders with police roles, with police switching and forging names, as roles with a Violet family and a Joshua Julian. For the people in my area, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with wire crimes with them, falsified police reports with them through time. These are people with the intelligence community at UConn, has roles psychiatry, tactically delusions wrought with them, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, faking conversations with people through time. Whole bunch of people tied to it as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his lawyer, and people next to the locations associated with him, not just on the spots near the state capitol involved before the World Trade Center attack. In that context, and since intercities Connecticut, they're planting collusions also with Dean Judd's kids and people at next to Trinity College as the ones involved on my street through time. People that families that don't even live here anymore, intelligence families involved wire crimes are the ones involved with the Weathersfield police chief retired and the Mendez police falsifying police fake conversations, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. Trying to make fake exceptions, search phishing through Facebook because they have collusions with methods by they have roles already with predicate acts, roles with methods in all sides of criminal and civil cases. These are also people collusions with the prisons, not just the corrections offices and the judicial offices. At Sandy Hook Prison, a whole bunch of people tied to West Hartford locations and before the World Trade Center attack with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, foreign and domestic military, a Kuwaiti general's family associated with Dean Keys and a Dean Judd, and their roles with religious spots and sensibilities and delusions and differences racketeering. But see, the delusions they want to be rude. That's why I have to have the interbranch forward names. Otherwise, they always say, well, yeah, and they make people have civil cases too. They have all sides of criminal and civil cases, collusions with the courts at the same time. They're family members. A whole bunch of people from Weathersfield, a whole bunch of judges tied to a Cololo family, and one of their families is named Delafera, and one of their families is named Spada, and they have probate court judges, and I barely know them, and they try to make a fake exceptions. They have something to do with people from Washington D.C. and the World Trade Center who have roles with people in the campuses where there are other minds speaking for each of the sciences, including the law and any value like integrity. In other words, in other words, and there are all exceptions in exception nature that appear to be a demonstration of other. They come with demonstrations of the same thing. So in other words, they know that there are countries A through Z that are used remotely. Shown needs to hide the value of roles with predicate acts with facts. That's one of the reasons why and how clearer than day the predicate acts with facts method against each of us. When anyone mentions black or white, the collusion is with it right there to discern. Because you guys are messing with the hyper clear. We have to clear, not only just clear, we have to keep it hyper clear so we can discern. And what we have to discern is the breaching method. The predicate acts, we have to focus on the predicate acts themselves. Like the wire crimes, WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves. Also as confirmations of their roles with people from Saudi Arabia and people from the World Trade Center in New York and people from Washington, D.C., also as predicate acts with WFSB with the names next to them, as roles also next to the Fox Connecticut News, roles of predicate acts with them, as people involved with WTNH, also with the FBI right next to them in New Haven, as the ones increasingly involved, Weathersfield, intercities, and intra-city too, planting fake ties, fake natures of ties, fake motivations for it. There are connections between those people. The same house increasingly involved with wire crimes with the police, forging in the police forms, forging and switching names. These are multiple police departments involved with these names: D. Simone, O'Brien, Cololo, and Smith, and more. And it's nothing personal. They brought this up. These are people with the Weathersfield police phones, and these are 911 people with 911 police phones families involved with the World Trade Center attack interstates and intrastates and intercities and intracities and intercampuses and intracampuses. I never had a class with Eric Mendez or his brother in my life. They have roles with the Leahy family too. They were influenced to walk by me, and other people made confessions tied to them. Identity theft frauds. Leahy family attached me to fake conversations with them. So did with these Weathersfield police. The Leahy family are doctors at Harvard Hospital. A whole bunch of people with the names next to them. Chris Walters is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with things I don't want to even repeat. In other words, because there are kids involved and people with working at the schools involved with sense and sensibilities with that too, where there are judges and prosecutors too involved, needing to cover up things with their family members. And FBI director, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. He has predicate acts roles with a guy who's reportedly dead named Chris Walters, who they influenced to be around me to pretend I had conversations with them that weren't at all, and to put a fake natures of ties to me and me to him, and their roles with planting evidences on all sides of campuses and on the roof of one. In other words, as people involved with, the courts forging and switching names with the principal child abuser and other past child abusers, leaders of kids, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with mayors. A whole bunch of people tied to them. In other words, they're needing to pretend it's personal. Oh, well, look at this. Oh, well, then go in court. They get to my paper one day in sequence. A whole bunch of people in New Britain Superior Court involved with rape threats right on their Facebook page as passion crimes, collusions, and confirmations of their roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, people associated with the depositions of them, all sides of that case and other cases, like one in the Ninth Circuit in the court in Manhattan, right next to the World Trade Center the day of the attack. See, but we have the intelligence community also discrediting people's legitimate words on YouTube and across social media. And they have racketeering. The same thing with the drug companies. In other words, they're making the blame, leaving out the breaching methods roles with it. They have all kinds of scams at Harvard Hospital and fake transcripts, all kinds of wire crimes, mail crimes, tactical delusions too that are also evidences. And with judges like a Judge Killian recorded and changed role collusions with agencies, switching and faking digital evidences with child sex offenders, with medical ones. You have sick probate court judges and their roles with the collusions even further with their family members, with the names next to the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices, because they're a certain type of victim / hyper victim since they were kids, because a breaching method raised their campuses, raised their minds. Get them on paper, please. Ask Judge Napolitano to pay attention, because I've been asking them, because they were using wire and mail crimes and falsified police reports and with that, and then they make confessions and don't put any writing. They just put a charge, and way worse collusions. And there are 4 names involved with the same ones. Increasingly different criminal enterprises per themselves are involved with New Britain Superior Court's family members and Harvard Court's family members. People associated with Connecticut's district court and probate courts. They have judges associated with locking elderly, all the process that behind and the motivations, people pretend they have integrity at elderly homes. Not real science spoke for the ground. How it built the suburbs. You have the people stacked in there. Here, get them on paper, please. Judge Napolitano, get Weathersfield into branch on paper now. Let's big branches. Bow. All I needed was one at first. Now it's all. In other words, these are the people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. And they're going to confess this to you. They confessed it to me. These are ones where there's other names involved, keeping everyone fake and pretending other. There's a guy that Harper Courts confessed has the name Inspector I don't know what is his name? Officer Hunter. He's involved with Harper Courts before and after the World Trade Center attack with Dean Judd and his family members and with people involved with. I never saw Eric Burgess on the campus of Central Connecticut State University in my life. He sought me out, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. The intelligence community influenced him to identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences, crimes, and criminal foreign influences at Central Connecticut State University and next to it, and at child campuses and next to it, and at fire campuses and next to it. Has something to do with their roles with a park and a Joseph Dennis. A Joseph Dennis, a John Dennis have roles with the intelligence community all along Route 175, increasingly involved with people with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and as these people that are covered wire crimes and mail crimes with Wethersfield police. And they're making confessions too. Some retired police chiefs have roles with drugs and messes, crimes, and officers that were influenced to confess that the police chief made them switch names and they didn't want to do it. And he faked conversations with me. So I want a response to why they brought up the name Leahy too. Let's get them on paper. He pretended through the mail to others that he had conversations with me. We never had conversations. Put fake transcripts. Whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital and next to it through time with the intelligence community in Hartford, Connecticut. Are people at next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, and next to Trinity College, who have been planting predicate acts on my street and with Wethersfield police and with fire departments and with their campuses. Identity theft, fraud, slanders with the news names involved too. And they're also pretending it's personal, so we can't do business like other people. This breaching method employed all natures of business, criminally foreign influence too, or tactical delusions, wrought, torture, extorted, and fact human nature enslaved, therefore physically too. But so that's why we have to deal with differences properly. That's why you have to get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's go. In other words, a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital too recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed predicate acts roles with a Kevin Dillon, planting evidences on all sides of my house. His roles with federal evidences, crimes, and they should have been honest to my neighbors. They hid their roles with criminally foreign influence uses of my area, and before they had Anna/Annie Dillon with the sale of a house, and because the neighbors before that were also involved with the untimely deaths with the Kevin Dillon, with two, and planting evidence on all sides of my house, and at Trinity College, one of the untimely deaths, and one of the ones associated with this Robert Rodriguez, who was planting evidence on my street, brought up the principal child abuser to me, and I caught them first being forced before it was found out off campus anyway. In other words, with the principal child abuser or principal being. How you doing? How you doing, the dogs? Shout out to the dogs. So in other words, presidents are individuals. Leaders, no matter how powerful they get, or any grouping of countries. If you're entertaining locations, areas, and states as entertained, see, forgiveness is because everyone came through sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, tactically, criminally, denatured sciences per a method that knew that they would have to hide what nature is demonstrating, tied to the most critical subjects, like our founders, measured and maintained by a breaching method, other communicated for themselves than they communicated. See, people bring up James Monroe and the Monroe Doctrine, and they're measured and maintained, incapable of defending their syntax with that or their nature with that, and of simultaneously affording to be, let alone to protract, proper what our founders communicated for us to understand. About, in other words, there are three natures of founders, and we are to know them as the face of James Madison, because this is the syntax to liberate that everyone with the Constitution unabridged, and why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, and why and how that is prevented its value/value progression. For example, identity of relativity to ourselves. See, relativity, black people, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. We have relativity. We have theories. We have experts with theories on relativity and syntax towards it and the nature of the debate. Oh, you know more than Einstein. See, the identity of math is made simultaneously greater than and more finite. I mean, it's smaller than it is. Tactical terror from how nature shows us to appreciate it. For example, so in other words, we have these means to appreciate. You know, one of the things that forgiveness is about is because when we get it right, there's a human fact should be nature breaching method that effectively got countries A through Z, locations, areas, and states of countries A through Z. Sustained roles blaming other things, others, ourselves for things the breaching method caused, past, and for the things the breaching method maintains active, like the World Trade Center attack, effectively used to keep effective remote use/s of Saudi's identity and of America's identity through their own fake sites. Collusion/s while pretending to go, oh, we're trying to put. In other words, that collusion next to the World Trade Center and the court next to it, including increasingly as people interstates and intercities, intra-cities too, inter-campuses and intra-campuses. So, in other words, we also need to get them to unblock the posts on YouTube for the Wethersfield town meetings because they have roles with agencies, plural, not just with the Wethersfield police chiefs retired. And standing, in other words, please get them on paper, one name and sequence. This is ongoing. These are ongoing predicate acts. This is not, oh, why are you in the past? Been asking you guys for a long time. You guys used to put me in fake conversations with them as a kid, and now as an adult too, sickly distinctly too, at the Wethersfield Police Department. So you guys are communicating, have communicated way other than you're pretending. You're capable with the FBI and other police departments involved with your sources too. A whole bunch of families associated with this name O'Brien and with the name Cololo. And with that was the name Scalora, Wethersfield Police can confess the name Scalora involved with predicate acts, federal evidence, and crimes on my street. Let's get the Scalora family on paper, where they live, with their names. I know there's a Claudia Scalora and a Subby Scalora, and they have relatives involved interstates, including with Florida, with the intelligence community, Central Connecticut State University. Sick. How you doing? In other words, I've been asking Judge Napolitano all the time. See, one of the things they're using is wire and mail crime methods. The FBI and other agencies and state police families interstates. Whole bunch of people involved with this. In other words, with these agencies. There's a Mike Roberts with Massachusetts involved with some FBI and with some state police families interstates. And with the people who run he has ties to the shopping centers with a Robert Rodriguez and with a Daryl Chandler involved with drugs and medicines crimes with their educators too. I never had a class with Mike Roberts. He had their roles all along Route 175 in conjunctions to it with federal evidences crimes with their educators. And with people involved on my street with predicate acts with them, and the police that are refusing to identify themselves legitimately, with the courts doing the same thing, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since interstates and intrastates. Forgiveness is because we're going to have to show how all are guilty too, because there are a whole bunch of ways to show all guilty, because you guys have blamed other things, others yourselves. For things our founders and natures ourselves showed us about what's causing negative value, like about criminal and citizens' natures of positive treatments in the suburbs, let alone the cities. We're not going to forsake you, people of the cities. We're gonna treat this as a breaching method. We're not going to blame other people. They're gonna bring in themselves. You know, in other words, we're just going to focus. If we keep it on forgiveness, we come down to the principles. Like this principle, that's one of the things that's true always. That slavery was about the human fact, human nature breaching method. And our founders wanted us to communicate this. They communicated this. They want us to appreciate how there's what they said was being measured and maintained through everyone already, everyone's already strangers, but not because we are a human species body of individuals. We know each other. So we try to know each other through these games, but through these suits and ties counters and the facades of suburbs, let alone cities. In other words, nature is going to continue to demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that the breaching method employed effectively to be used effectively to keep those negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures blamed on other things other than themselves until that was true. And keeping that, all exceptions that come with demonstrations of all the same thing, they're preventing that from being due. There's exceptions rackets with the people involved speaking for the law at the city, sickly distinctly, intercities. The difference between that too is used by the breaching method. We have to address the delusions too of the states and of the sciences, including the ones that are supposed to be experts on reason. These are delusions wrought, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and used and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence. That's how they show them. They have to hide with roles with predicate acts when they were little kids at every campus. And this is ongoing. All we have to do to stop it is have mandated law followed. Please have Judge Napolitano follow mandated law. All the countries that he brings up with his subjects in the live streams, they are recorded involved here into cities and intro cities with the differences rackets with relative instances and names uses. And you're going to discern that it was other than they pretended. And will change what they're capable of discerning too. In other words, you guys came through sick campuses and I could heal you. In other words, I'm not even a lawyer. In other words, we have this identity of hyper simultaneous that shows us there is functions. It's functional how it is hyper invisible but still discernible to an extent. And again, even though we can only observe with any subject, individually grouped it together an extent of the identity of all space/existence. Wherever we have that, it comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. So this is a scientific method by black pupils, whites of eyes. It means to discern a predicate acts with facts method, replacing what nature communicates with this. When nature is not criminal insidiousness per nature itself. There is natural law projected to us, black pupils. Here. We will teach them clear. Thank you. Someone please tell Judge Napolitano, let's get them on paper. Let's go. Chop, chop, please.